My name is Menno Schilthuizen. I am an evolutionary biologist. I'm a researcher at Naturalis Biodiversity Center in Leiden in the Netherlands, which is the national natural history museum in the Netherlands. I'm also a professor of evolution and biodiversity at Leiden University. And in addition to that, I'm also a science communicator. So I write books and I give lectures and I organize excursions for the general public. And I'm very happy that two of my books, which are meant for a general audience, have been translated into Greek and published by the University of Crete Press. And that's Nature's Nether Regions, which is this one in the Greek translation. And also Darwin Comes to Town, which is this one, very nicely produced in the Vulgata series of the publisher. Both books are about evolution, but they're about very different kinds of evolution. The earlier one is Nature's Nether Regions. This is a book about the evolution of reproductive organs, so genitalia. It seems like a strange niche subject, but actually it isn't, because in the evolution of genitalia, of reproductive structures in animals across the animal kingdom, you see really the most fascinating parts of evolution encapsulated. And the strange thing is that biologists have been studying genitalia for more than 100 years, but they've never, until recently, never really wondered about why they evolve in the way that they do. So if you look in a field guide for identification of spiders or dragonflies or moths or butterflies or beetles, you will always find lots of drawings of the male and sometimes also the female genitalia, because even when you have species of animals that are very similar to each other on the outside, the genitalia are always wildly different. If you look at the penis of an animal, usually you can tell which species it is, even if it looks on the outside almost exactly the same as another species. And that means that these genitalia apparently evolve faster than the rest of the body of an animal. And that's why they are so different between species that are actually closely related. And this book is entirely about the evolution of those reproductive structures. And it turns out that actually what's happening with the shape and the function of these organs in all animals, including humans. There's actually a lot about humans in here, or even though the whole animal kingdom is treated, is all kinds of unexpected ways for evolution to work. Because you might expect that a penis is just an organ with a very simple function, namely to deposit sperm into a female. And a vagina is also, or a vulva is also a very simple organ, just designed to receive sperm. But if that were true, you would expect more or less the same shape in all animals. And that's not the case. As I said, in different species you find very different shapes. And that's because these reproductive organs are also a sort of a battleground. It's a place where male and female interests are being fought out in an evolutionary theater. So, because of course for males, usually it would be best, quote unquote best, if all females would use all their sperm to fertilize all their eggs. That would be best from the male's point of view. So evolution would maximize anything that the male does with its penis that improves the chances of having offspring. But for females, usually it's much better to have a variety of fathers for their children, that they can choose themselves which sperm from which male they're going to use for fertilizing which egg. So that means that on the male side you see that structures are evolving that try to bypass any control measures that the female has, and on the female side you see that there are shapes evolving that allow females to store sperm, to use it whenever they want, and to make sure that the male cannot deposit it directly onto the eggs, that they reserve it in special pockets. So these kinds of fascinating, what we call sexual selection, is going on inside the bodies of all kinds of animals, and they've led to completely wild shapes and functions in the genitalia. For example, in octopuses, you find that one of the arms is used as a penis, and it is detached from the male's body and swims autonomically into the female to deliver the sperm. In dung flies, females have different sperm storage organs, and some sperm storage organs are used for very sexy males and others for the regular males. Even in humans and chimpanzees, the penises are completely differently shaped, even though the rest of our bodies are pretty much the same. So it's a fascinating theater of evolution, and that theater is really explained in this book. The other book is more recent. That's Darwin Comes to Town. It's also about evolution, but it's about evolution in an environment that we humans have created. Cities. Cities have been around for thousands of years, of course, but only in the last 100 years, and especially in the time that we are living today, cities are really mushrooming all over the world. They are the cities with millions of humans living together are multiplying in all countries all over the world, which means that there are some parts of the world now that are completely urbanized. In China, there are regions the size of Greece which are completely urbanized. There's almost no wild nature there anymore, which means that all animals and plants that can still live there, they meet urbanized environments. They will not be able to find natural environments anymore. And it turns out that these animals and plants that are living with humans in cities are evolving really, really rapidly. They are evolving at a speed that you can actually watch happening. In just 10-20 years, animals and plants that live in cities are adapting to these urban environments. As an example, you find that pigeons are evolving darker feathers in cities with a lot of pollution, because the melanin, the pigment in the feathers, absorbs the polluting heavy metal ions, which puts it in the feathers and prevents these toxic substances from building up in the body of the bird. In plants, you see that seeds are evolving heavier. They become heavier because they will be able to drop straight down to where the mother plant is growing, and having these light seeds that blow in the wind and land somewhere else in cities is not a good strategy, because they will land usually on the tarmac where they cannot germinate. And in similar ways, you see that animals and plants in cities are all adapting at breakneck speed to the urban environment, which means that the city is really an urban ecosystem that is in the process of evolving, of changing, of becoming a really new ecosystem on Earth with lots of interesting patterns to observe. And it's also patterns that can help us to design a city that is more biodiverse, that is green, and that is better for the people who live there. So I close the book with some chapters in which I explain how urban planners and people, basically anybody in the city, can modify their environment in such a way that it becomes more suitable for wild animals and plants to live, and that we can all enjoy more living in this urban environment, which we think maybe doesn't have any nature, but actually there is a lot of nature in cities that we're not aware of. And I hope that my book will help you to become aware of the fact that even in the heart of a city, you're living in a vibrant and natural ecosystem.